Elmer J. Crumley, class of 1971.
I am Wesley Dacus. I graduated from North High in 1968.
My name is Crail McPherson, and I'm from the class of 1975.
My name is Geneva Scott DeRusso. I graduated from North High in 1968.
My name is Arvin Frazier. I'm a 1975 Omaha North High graduate.
This is not the same school that I went to. The school reminds me of a college campus. At this time when I went, it was just the one building, the one wing of the building, I should say, and that was it.
Huge, a lot. You know, just in this facility alone, this used to be the gym, the girls' gym downstairs where the teachers hang out. Used to be the locker room for the girls and boys. Used to be a track out front where the parking lot used to be. That's where junior high, that's where the JV football teams and the sophomore football team and the ninth grade football teams used to have their home games.
It looks a little different. Certainly the construction under previous leadership with Principal Mr. Harvey, who I knew very well, and certainly under Gene Haynes and now under Dr. Nero.
Oh my gosh, the school has gotten a lot bigger. The education program has advanced with the STEM programs. North is known in the community as one of the leading schools for your science and math programs, which is great.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have friends in several different classes, and we all stay connected with Facebook. I have friends, a lot of North alum are all over the country, and my brother is an example of that. He graduated, he's not in the yearbook, but he was supposed to have graduated in 1961. He got his GED instead because he went into the Air Force. And, but he went here, and he's in Arizona. And there are several of snowbirds down there.
Sure, I do. I have a number of us who we get together, rehash old times, and talk about things that weren't so good also.
Yes, I have a lot of friends. I still live in my family home, just a few blocks from North High. And while the area has changed a bit and people have grown, I maintain contact with fellow graduates and friends who were friends for life, friends that I grew up with.
My occupation was I was planning on going to the Air Force from North High, but I didn't want to go to Vietnam, so I decided to go to college. And I got a football scholarship because I was on the 1968 championship team at that particular time. And I went to college and got a degree in education and taught school for the next 40 years.
No. What I thought I wanted to do was go into business administration. And I did not have the required amount of math classes when I graduated from here at North High School. And because of that, I was going to have so many classes I would have to take in order to get prepared for the university math class. So I decided to change my major to elementary education and special education, which is something I probably should have gone in the very beginning anyway. So yes, and North High School prepared me well for that field.
I would say in terms of an occupation that I knew that I wanted to do in high school, I wasn't sure. I was all over the place. I just knew that I wanted to go to college. I knew that I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something better than previous paths. And currently, I would have never thought that I would be in a position leading a team of folks providing services to my alma mater.
I played athletics, played in football, and played basketball, and I played in the band. And at that time, I guess North was known for its strong academic classes that was there. We had some great teachers, and basically it was more known at what I took at that time as a young 16 to 18-year-old was just athletics, and we're very strong in athletics.
I was involved in a lot of clubs. I was that social butterfly that liked to be involved in things. Certainly, as I've mentioned, I was involved in the music department, particularly the band, the orchestra, stage band. But we had a Black Studies department that was thriving. We had a lot of fun. We challenged our faculty in a basketball game and did a lot of things with that. And so I still have many friends from those groups. But I enjoyed my high school years.
Basically, I stayed in the music area. Honestly, I went to all the football games naturally, supported the football teams, supported the basketball teams, loved every minute of watching and rooting people on. I was not athletically inclined at all. And just helped people, and I had a fairly large circle of friends.
Is that the one you're talking about with George Wallace came to Omaha? Yes. George Wallace came to Omaha, and George Wallace was a very known, very highly respected segregationist. His motto was segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation everywhere, all the time. And with him coming into town, it caused a lot of feelings. And what we saw as African American students at that time was the fact that you had students that embrace the segregation. And of course, during that time, it was a time that students in particular were very politically motivated. And unfortunately, the only way that you could voice your opinion was to do your demonstrations, the mini riots, and that type of thing. And yes, when the walkout occurred, I did walk, yes.
No, I didn't. I knew better. I knew better. I wasn't gonna go down there and get my head bust open. Some of my friends went down there and got their heads bust open, but as far as I was concerned, I was gonna keep my distance from that because I knew what kind of situation it would be.
The funniest thing that happened was when a friend of my parents actually, would sent a clipping from a Louisiana paper about the walkouts and everything that happened. And I go, it's interesting that you had to get it from Louisiana before I even got home from school and knew about it. Because by 75, there wasn't too many problems within the school. The problems were more outside the school. We had problems with students from Central, students from Benson. I mean, we developed some really hard rivalries back then.
My mother was, because of all the rioting and all the unrest that was going on around the world, my mother was very protective and saying, "You're not going anywhere." But I knew that other people there were protesting against him coming because he was just so racist at the time. As you know, when he got shot, he changed from being a racist governor to more of accommodating and understanding governor, and all of a sudden embracing minorities. But no, I did not participate.
North was known for basically track and football. From 1961, 62 to about 1975, 76, North always had a pretty decent football team. And I'm blessed to be a part of it in 1968, 67, 68, because of the 15 blacks who was on the football team, 13 of us came from the same neighborhood. So we've been playing football with one another since 6th grade. So we did all right. Because I came from Horseman, and we was on the Horseman championship team. We was undefeated there too, also. So half that team came up to North High.
Our madrigals, which is now like Explosion is now. Madrigals were mostly a cappella, and they were They traveled all over the city putting on concerts. Jazz band was huge back when I was in high school. We had the best jazz band there was in the high school setting. We have produced several musicians that are working as musicians, several athletes, which I'm very proud of. We've put people in the NFL from this school. We've done a lot, and we have more to do. We can change. This school can change the world. You guys have got the minds to do it. Change it, because we started it. You can finish it.
For sure.
What was it? Our great football team. We were a powerhouse in football. I mean, our biggest competition was Tech High. So we were, that was what we were known for, our strong football team. So
Again, you have to understand that back in the time, it was a time of political beliefs being shaped around America. It was time that political beliefs were being struck down, for example, as it relates to race relations and that type of thing. And it was, I want to say, our generation that was in the vanguard of that movement. And it was up to the students too, because our parents weren't listening. You look at what happened in the Vietnam War that was going on at that time, a war that so many poor men were being killed, whereas I remember taking down a number of draft deferment letters to the office to be mailed from our teachers, and they were not going into war. It was basically the poor and blacks that were going into war, and it was wrong. You know, we don't mind going into war, but we want to go into war that was even-handed, that demonstrated what America looked like. And the Vietnam War did not demonstrate that.
We did some down here, but basically they was trying to suppress it so we would not get all the information that we needed to be successful with our civil rights movement.
I think they should absolutely tell you the truth. Knowledge is power. You have to know what's going on in the world, and and you have to know the truth, and you have to believe your leaders. That's where your leaders come in. Your leaders should not lie to you about what's going on. Our government officials should absolutely tell you the truth of what's going on, so that you know you can make decisions about whatever is going on. For instance, COVID, world issues, what's going on now in Ukraine and what Russia's doing. You should know, because you need to know what's going to affect you and how that is going to affect our economy, how it's going to affect our livelihood. It's going to know how to affect what happens in the world. Eventually will trickle down to what's going on in our own United States of America. So we need to know, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yes. You know, we, quite honestly, at the time that I was at North, it was a very segregated environment as I look back. There was a designated free lunch lines, and then there was the cash paying lines in the cafeteria. And I thought nothing of it growing up, that I went through the free lunch line. And I sat with peers, and I sat with friends and folks that I knew. And so it pretty much was a very segregated environment, other than perhaps on the athletic field, and then within the music field, because at that point then it was really about just the talent. But my circle of friends were pretty much those that were from my neighborhood, this neighborhood, other than those that I certainly came in contact with through the music department, particularly the band and orchestra.
It did not affect our class, because we were pre-busing and everything. We were completely, busing didn't happen until like 3 or 4 years after.
1975, 76.
Did it start in
Yeah.
76? Because it didn't
75,
happen with
76.
us. It didn't happen with us. We were definitely just part of everyday life.
Mhm.
I grew up in North Omaha. Work in Carter Lake now as it is, and I love it. I still love North Omaha. I still support the school.
In my school, it really impacted. I mean, in the early years, like I said in the beginning, there wasn't a lot of programs for minority students. But when the Civil Acts was going on in the 60s, doors started opening. There was programs that were coming available for minorities to go to school. Martin Luther King Scholarship was one of them. You know, after his death, I happened to qualify and get a small Martin Luther King Scholarship to go to school, which really helped. But I know that by the time my sisters graduated, there were more programs for them to apply to go to school. My parents couldn't afford to send us to school. We had to help with getting assistance to go to school. I think my parents were able to help me more than they were my younger sisters because we were so close in age. But it really helped open the doors for minorities to get more opportunities to go to school. They were offering more money.
The desegregation of Omaha Public Schools was very one-sided. And by that I mean that Caucasian students were at the elementary level was sent to the North Omaha schools for only 1 year. And that was either at the 2nd or 3rd grade level. Whereas African American students were sent at the elementary level to the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades, 3 years as compared to 1. At the junior high school, it was known at that time, Rosa Middle School now, Caucasians did not have to change schools, whereas the African American students were forced to go to middle school for those 2 years. And again, after high school level, African American students again went from 9th to 12th grade out of their neighborhood. But again, it was that heavy-handed. But in the history of America, when it comes to integration of our country, African Americans have always bear the burden of putting themselves out, as opposed to Caucasians equally.
I thought it was fascinating. When I was in school and we were talking about going to the moon, I thought it was fascinating. So I don't know that it affected me so much, but you have hopes and wonder, what are they going to find? Are they going to find what we see on TV, on sci-fi movies, some little green aliens? So you wonder, you use your imagination about, wow, what are they going to find? Are they going to be able to come back? So I thought it was fascinating.
Oh yeah. It was some things we didn't believe, but it did work. It did happen. But I think the technology helps a lot. And nowadays, technology is moving and shaking the world. With social media, with the walking around with a computer in your hand, the whole 9 yards. It makes a difference. You can't go to sleep with it. You can't do without it. So it's just like losing your right hand. If you lose that phone, you're in trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think it did a lot of changes because you got, as students got so much more potential to be successful in North High, more or less in OPS, because when we was coming up, it was just basic, get the basic English, math, social studies, go find your job, retired after 40 years and you're done. So basically, I did not do that. I went to college. So I went to college from North High.
Oh, I think that the school environment has changed so that there are more opportunities for the young people than there was when I was going to school. When I was going to school, especially for minorities, it wasn't, that was during the era when the civil rights movement was really going on in the 60s. And there wasn't a lot of opportunities for minorities to get money to go to school. If you couldn't afford to go to school, there wasn't that many programs out there, and I think now there are so many more programs for young people to take opportunity to go to school and to get assistance and help.
I did not want to go. Matter of fact, I didn't know nothing about Vietnam because it was taking anybody that could walk with 2 feet, and I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to carry a gun because I never shot a gun before, and I was going to go all the way across the other side of the world, fight against something I didn't know nothing about. So I had the opportunity to go to college, and I stuck it out, got my 4 years of education, came back. I was never an activist pertaining to Vietnam because I put all my emphasis on graduating from college.
I'm an activist, actually. I was involved with I wore a bracelet for the POW. I had a POW on my wrist for the entire time I was in high school. And our class was a class of change. It seemed like our class came back together as a group. There were several classes prior to us where it was African Americans had their group and the whites had their group, and they just stayed separate. Our class, on the other hand, decided that wasn't worth it, and we came together and had fun together. My parents got lectures from friends of theirs not to send me here. They go, put her into a Catholic school, do anything. No, I wanted to go here. And we created change.
For sure.
I came at a time when friends, older brothers, were serving in the Vietnam War. Older brothers of friends of mine and people that I knew. And you know, at that age, even when someone's 4 years older, they seem very, very old. And I recall often their return to the United States and how challenging that was for them. And you know, we weren't in the digital age that we are now. We watched the nightly news to get the reports of the Vietnam War and what was occurring, and my parents we would sit down and watch and talk about that. And the thing that struck me so and how it hit home were not only the lives lost, but the young men who were just a few years older than I, their challenges when they returned home. And you know, at the time we would just say things like, "Oh, so-and-so's crazy." We weren't as comforting as we now know we should have been, but it did hit home to think something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong in terms of the treatment of our veterans and my neighborhood people that came back. I knew that wasn't the path for me. I didn't know the why, but I just knew that wasn't the path for me.
Of course. That phone that you got in your hand is one of the main causes of that, because with that social media is a mess. You know, shoot, that thing is just a mess sometimes. Just get you in too much trouble. You know, everybody don't need to know your business.
For sure.
Yes, we've, I still live in the community. And the community has some incredible challenges that are well known. Systemic and institutional. Systemic in the sense that they were there in the mid-70s, but we overcame. And now the challenges are greater. Housing costs are such that families don't have the resources that my parents had. My parents weren't making a lot, but it was a working home. But the challenges are many, and it has not gotten better.
I have to attribute that to Mrs. Lewis. She's the one that got me interested in it, into accounting. And she was a fabulous teacher here. Oh, she was, yes. I had several favorite teachers. Her and Mrs. Godowski were my two favorite teachers. And English was not my best subject, but I strived to do the best I could in Gadowski's class because she just brought it out in you. And Mrs. Lewis did the same thing, but my brain for numbers clicked, and when she started explaining accounting, it just fit. I fell in love with just doing it, and her and I are still friends today.
Pushed you like a favorite teacher.
I did not have many teachers that helped me. I think the biggest thing I had was a lot of them discouraged me. Even my counselor discouraged me. Matter of fact, my counselor told me not to even go to college. He said I was not good enough to go to college, but I guess I proved him wrong.
It's different. I see more pride in the school from the students. I see pride in the alumni. We're proud to be from North High. And we make it abundantly clear, we are the true North High. It is not Millard North, it is Omaha North. And it was that there's a good sense of pride among everything. The changes in the school have been for the better. I can remember sitting in windows. Can't do that anymore. We used to open these big, gigantic, these big windows that you have. Those were resemblance of what we used to have. And we'd open the windows and we'd just sit in windows. No air conditioning back in the day. And we'd sit through the hot days and sit in the windows. Had fun. I missed the stage here. I did 4 musicals when I was in high school. I got involved.
Really, because I think the biggest thing about me in 1968 was the fact that we start wearing different type of clothing. We start wearing afros. We start picking out our hair. We start doing some things that was going against the norm. Instead of being a Negro, now we're black. And then we got later on when instead of being a black, then we became African Americans. So all that came in that particular area between 68 and 75.
I am a product of North Omaha. I am a product of this area. I'm a product of a 1-block radius of North High School. I never have lost track of those roots, and those roots have served as a foundation for me. I currently now lead an organization, College Possible, that actually provides services to students here at North High. We assist students in getting into college and then graduating from college thereafter. I am blessed to be in a role or in a position at this stage of my career where I'm leading efforts serving students in a manner in which I benefited from. Guiding and directing. Students here don't need to be fixed. They are not broken. Students here don't need saviors. They don't need someone to come in and save them, but we can benefit from guidance. I think again of that counselor, Ms. Hawes, who helped guide and direct me and others to operationalize our dream. I feel blessed and fortunate. What I say to young people here now is don't give up on yourself. Believe in yourself, but you've got to put the work in. We can't blame they or them. We've got to overcome. We've got to overcome those hurdles. We've got to overcome those challenges. Those challenges are just barriers that we just need to be kicked out of the way. Don't let them, they stop you. This world needs to become more inclusive. We need to become more supportive, but
I would want to give advice to future students is take advantage and enjoy your high school years. If there's one thing I wish I could ever go back to a period in my life was my high school. I didn't realize how great my high school years were being with my friends. Because once you graduate from high school, you grow up really fast. And you have to all of a sudden think about what your future is and who's gonna buy your groceries, who's gonna pay your rent, who's gonna pay buy your car. Your high school years were the best years of my life, and I just wished I had go back and did a better job of learning, getting better grades, taking advantage of the opportunities I had for the different community, as I said, community groups, programs that they had. Even though I didn't feel like I was going to be accepted, I should have tried to push those doors open and be a part of the different activities that the school did have that was dominated by the white students. I just didn't feel like, well, you know, I'm not going to be accepted in those groups, and that was the wrong attitude. But I think education is so important for you. And I think not just studying in the books, but being a part of what the school is doing, whether it's playing basketball, playing football, being on the cheerleading team, being on the debate team. Be a part of something. Do something at your school to be a part of your community and help your community grow. Help the school be a better school.
I would always recommend North Hive to any student that's looking at the high schools nowadays. I know that you guys send out invitations and everything. My daughter went here too. Study, listen to your teachers, but also take into account family history, because teachers are not always right. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but they're constantly learning too. I had a teacher that tried to tell me that everybody was out of work during the Depression. I got thrown out of the class because I stood up against her and said, no, that isn't true. My grandfather had a job during the Depression. My mother had to come up and defend me. But we had some great, it's a great school. Do the studies, learn everything you can, and learn from other people, learn from different cultures. That's what I've done, and I've enjoyed my life tremendously.
My big advice is that continue to do what you've been doing. You got to get an education. Education is very important, and you also got to communicate with one another, not through that phone, but face to face. Because if you know how to interact with each other face to face, you go anywhere in the world. As long as you know how to do it face to face, because that phone will get you in trouble. Because you know that thing's a mess. It's just a mess.
I would tell students to take advantage of all the opportunities that are given to them. At the time when I went to school, there were only a select few areas of professions that African Americans could go into. Now it is opened up, and again, use your education as a tool of interest. And by that I mean, use it to find out what do you like and what do you dislike. And then once you find that out, then you have a better chance of preparing yourself for